This video is all about the suspension on the 899 Panigale. It has adjustable front and rear suspension, so I'll just go through how to change these settings and what the settings feel like. So to start off with, we'll start at the rear. Alright, to adjust the rebound on the rear suspension here, you want this screw. And as for how many turns that takes, it's all outlined in the manual, depending on, well, you can play around with it, but it'll give you the correct settings to restore it or set it up for track day. The compression is adjusted right up the top here. You can even, you might be able to pick it up on the camera, it even says an arrow pointing for soft and one for hard. But again, that'll be how many turns is outlined in the manual. And the spring itself, to make it tighter or looser, what you want is these two nuts here. You want to loosen this one to get to this one, and then this one you make either looser or tighter depending on how firm you want that spring. Now what does this all do? For the rear seat, because when I picked up the bike it was on track day setting, which is also a setting for a smaller person. What it does is it raises the rear seat and it sort of tips you forward like in a real racy position. So where it is now on the stock setting, it's sort of like more closer to horizontal, which is more comfortable for me. And when you make it harder for the track day setting, it really will tip you forward, which is kind of what you want to be whizzing around a track on anyway. Alright, now the front suspension. You can see here, you adjust your compression with this screw on the right. It even says a little compression abbreviation there, in case you forgot. And the rebound setting will be the one on the left. And as for the spring setting, you want this one right there. You adjust it there. Now when it's on the track setting, what this all does is, it's on the top ring here, but you'll have a bunch of these rings exposed. The handlebars will be much lower. It's a real racy position, much like the earlier Ducati Superbike. So you'll be crouched right over forward, the handlebars will be low, the forks will be heavily compressed, and it's a very racy riding position. Or if you're a shorter person, it's probably more comfortable for you guys. Now what does all this feel like? Well, as I said before, it was sold to me in track day setting as a mistake, because I think they thought I was a smaller person, and anyhow that's how it went out the door. So 10 metres down the road I immediately knew I'd much prefer the stock settings, but I went for a little brief run around the hills with the track day setting, and boy, the turn-in's just fantastic. You just slight little touch of the handlebars and you're around the corner. It's it really makes sense there. But where it doesn't make sense is on the street at low speeds around walking pace. You have to be really careful with those handlebars because the front will just want to drop, and the tyres are so sticky it'll want to tip over. It's just that responsive. So while you're going along on a track or in the hills, track day settings are fine, but for around the suburbs, or if you're a taller person like I am, it's probably doesn't make as much sense. I'll just show you in the manual here while I've got it out. See, that's the how many turns to do for the track setting and the road setting. Restore it to the stock setting. And there's also the same for the front as to how many turns of the screwdriver and all that sort of thing there. So that's all in the manual. But again, you can play with that around, play with it yourself. being a new bike, the dealer actually did the adjustments for me when I wanted to return to stock setting, and they'll do that for you free of charge, so you actually don't have to do it at home while the bike's new anyway. Obviously when the warranty and all that runs out, then you're on your own. But this fairing, actually, I remember they took that off. It doesn't say it in the manual, but they actually take the fairing off. You can see the bolts, little black bolts around the place, and they take all of them off just to get to the front and all the rest of it. And the steering dampener, they don't mention anything about that in the manual when you adjust the forks, but I know for a fact that they do check that is all in working order before they send you on your merry way. So there you have it. That's the front and rear suspension and how to change it on the 899 Panigale. Now through the powers of editing, I'll show you what the front looks like when it's on the track day settings as compared to the stock settings that they are now. So just note that it's on the top spring there, the top coil, and this is in the stock setting, and I'll just show you the video now of when it was on the ride day setting, the hardest setting available, just for comparison.